Oh, hey, it's me, Steve. Sorry, but Sensei was a little sick, so he asked me to teach you some math. We're going to be doing some Blue's Clues. Now, what we must do is we got to find a clue. But first, we got here, instead of Blue's Clues, I couldn't find blue, so I got someone else instead. Sweetie's here. Isn't that amazing? We're going to go find some clues. Well, we're here and I'm trying to find a clue. Have you seen a clue anywhere? You have? Let's see if we can find it. Is it over here? Is this the clue? Is it around me? Is it near somewhere? Is it somewhere I can find? Point to where it is. A clue! Right next to Sweetie. Let's check out what it says. Phase shift. What does that mean? I know. I'm going to put it in my trusty dusty notebook. Okay, let's see. We have our first clue is phase shift. That was great. We found our first clue. But I don't know. I really need to find another clue. Have you seen Sweetie anywhere? Well, let's go look around. Is there a clue there? I really wish I could find a clue. Maybe you can help me somehow. Do you see a clue? Right there, next to the stove. Look who's there, Sweetie. It's a clue. Let's go check it out. Good thing I got my handy dandy notebook. Our next clue says, period. Let's see. Our first clue was phase shift. Our second clue period. Do you know what that means, Sweetie? Me neither. Wow, you're a big help. We just found two clues. We just have one more to find. I think we can figure this out. Let's see if we can figure out where it is. Did you find it? Did you find Sweetie? Show me where it is. You did it! A clue! We found a clue! Thanks, Sweetie. Oh, let's see what it says. Oh my goodness. It's a circle. It's the unit circle. Trusty dusty notebook. Let's see. Phase shift, period. Then we had a unit circle. I think we can now go to our thinking chair. Okay. Now that we found our 3 clues, what are we going to do? I know. You find your first clue, what do? You put it in your notebook, what do? Blues Clues, Blues Clues. You find the second clue, what do? You put it in your notebook, Blues Clues, Blues Clues. You find the third, what do? It's Blues Clues, Blues Clues. Then you go to your thinking chair and you sit, and what do? You think. Think. Now, let's look at our 3 clues. Right, sweetie? Our first clue is the phase shift. What do we use phase shifts for? Oh yeah, graphing sine and cosine for trigonometry. Then our second clue was the period. That's how long it takes to go 1 full cycle around the circle. And then our third clue was the unit circle. Oh my gosh, I think I know what to do. These are clues from Sensei that tell us we need to practice our Chapter 9 unit test that studies graphing trigonomic functions. Well, let's get to it. I'm so glad you guys found those clues. So now we can work on the test together. Okay, let's look at first question number 2. Let's go ahead and graph that. Y equals 2 times cosine x. Well, remember our 5 parts. We want to find the amplitude, the phase shift, the period, the vertical shift, and the x scale. Well, we can see that the amplitude is based on the a, the phase shift is based on the bx plus c, the period is 2 pi divided by b, the vertical shift is the k, and the x scale is the period divided by 4. Well, let's go and see what's going on here. Okay, now, the amplitude, well, that is 2. The period shift, well, there is no period shift because there is no B or C. So you could say 1x, what you could say is, this is 1 times x plus 0. But you don't need that there. You just say 1x plus 0 equals 0, or x equals 0, which means you start at 0 right there. The vertical shift, well, there's no vertical shift, so k equals 0. Period is 2 pi over b. Well, b is 1, so it's 2 pi over 1, or just 2 pi, which is our regular period. And then our x scale is the period divided by 4. So 2 pi divided by 4 tells us how we should do our x scale. Or we reduce this to pi over 2. Now we need our 5 points to graph this function. So let's go ahead and look at it. You actually don't need to do all of this stuff for this first one because all it is the stretch factor, which is the amplitude. But we're going over everything just in case. Now the main thing is we got to label all graphs below units of the x-axis must be in radians. Remember that? Our x-axis must be in radians for full credit. Each function must graph 2 periods, at least 2 periods. So we know that our phase shifts starts at 0, so we're going to start here at 0. But let's do our x scale first. Our x scale means everything is increased by pi over 2. So this will be pi over 2. This will be 2. What comes after 1 pi over 2? 2 pi over 2, which is pi. 3 pi over 2. 4 pi over 2, which is 2 pi. Then 5 pi over 2. This will be 6 pi over 2, which will be 3 pi. This will be 7 pi over 2. This will be 8 pi over 2, which will be just 4 pi. Okay? Now, we know that our vertical shift is 0, so our midline here is at 0, right? And we have, here's the thing right here. Since our midline's here, well, let's draw the midline. Even though the midline's here, I'm just going to draw it for you to see. Midline is here. And I don't mean to overcomplicate it, but this is just the regular cosine. We just stretch it up 2. But just so we can put it all together, it's the regular cosine shifted up 2. But our midline's here because there's no midline. Now, because our period is 2 because our amplitude is 2, that means we're going to go at least, well, let's make this 1, 2. I'm scaling it up to, actually, no, let's go like this. Let's make that 2, that 1. Let's get rid of that one. -1, -2. So this will be my high point because my amplitude says it's going up 2, right? I'm going up 2, so my high point will be here at 2. It's going to be 2 above. My low point will be -2, which will be right here. So I start at 0, and my period is at 2 pi. So that means I start at 0 here, and I'm going to end at 2 pi. My graph is cosine, so at cosine, we start high. Our high point is going to be 2, and I'm going to start at the high point, and at 2 pi, I'm going to end at the high point, which will be right there. The middle point will be my low point, the pi, and then everything in between is going to be 0. 0, 0, and you go like this. Remember cosine. It takes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points to make the period. Let's see what our next 5 points are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Cosine. First point's going to be the high point. Last point's going to be the high point. Middle point is going to be the low point. And then everything else in between will be zeros. And you go like that. Make sure on your test you show your work. I need to see this though for your work. For this one, all I need to really see is the amplitude. But anyway, that's the first one. Let's graph the next one. Y equals sine 2 of x. Okay, so let's do the same thing. Y equals sine 2 of x. What letter is this right here? That's the B. So amplitude, right? Let's write it here just so you can see. Y equals A times sine bx plus c plus k. So the only thing I'm worried about, this is going to affect the period. But anyway, the amplitude is my A is, if you want to see the numbers here, 1 sine of 2x plus 0 plus 0. You don't need these here, but there's my k, 0. My c is 0, and my amplitude is A is 1. So the amplitude is 1. Okay. I got my phase shift is equal to 2x plus 0 equals 0, or it's just going to be 0. That's my h, right? And it'll be x equals 0. So my phase shift is at 0. There's no phase shift. Okay, but what's affected is the period. My period is, right, 2 pi over b, where my b is 2. And 2 over 2 is just pi. So what does that mean? That means I'm going to finish my whole period at pi. Right? That's the only thing that you need that changes here. But let's just keep moving. If you got all that and you can graph it, you can skip everything else. But I just want to so you catch all our bases. Vertical shift. Well, remember that's the k. There is no k, so there is no vertical shift. That means my midline is at 0. And the scale is the period divided by 4. Okay, so that means each one that you want to do is going to be pi over 4, right? So you go 0, pi over 4, then the next one, 2 pi over 4, then 3 pi over 4, then 4 pi over 4, right? So if we were to add those, the first one was going to be pi over 4, then my next scale would be 2 pi over 4, then 3 pi over 4, right? Then the next one will be 4 pi. We need 5 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5 pi over 4. There's our one period right there, right? So you just need 5 of them. So, but this would simplify. Pi over 4, 2 pi over 4 is really pi over 2. 3 pi over 4 says 3 pi over 4. 4 pi over 4 is just pi, right? Actually, no, this would be, because we go 0, sorry. So go 0, pi over 4, 2 pi over 4, 3 pi over 4, 4 pi over 4. So these will be our 5 points. 0, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this would be our whole, that would be our whole period, right? Okay, so let's go ahead and do our scaling here. Okay. So, remember, our scaling is pi over 4. So let's go. So we're going to have here, the first one's going to be pi over 4. Then 2 pi over 4 is going to be after that. But 2 pi over 4 reduces to pi over 2. Now 3 pi over 4. Now 4 pi over 4, which is just pi. There's our 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points. There's our 5 points. Okay. Then after 4 pi over 4, then we got 5 pi over 4. Then 6 pi over 4, which reduces to 3 pi over 2. Then 7 pi over 4. Then 8 pi over 4, which is 2 pi. And those are 2 phases. Anyway, we go here. We know that, let's just do our 5 points. That should cover everything, because look, the amplitude, well, let's get our scale here. Amplitude is 1, so we go to 1 to -1. So here is my high point from the midline to 1. Here's my low point. Okay? So let's go. This is sine. Remember, sine, the first point is at 0. The last point is also at 0. And the middle point is at 0. Now the second point goes up, is the top. The third point will be in the bottom, and sine will look like this. There you go. There's my first period of sine. Let's do our second period of sine. First point at 0, then we got 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Here's my fifth point at 0. Middle point is at 0, right? Now sine, remember, it goes up, so we go up, second point, and then this point after the 0 point will go down, and then you just go like this. Woo. Of course, it keeps going, and there's your sine. Okay? That's how you do sine. Okay. Let's do y equals cosine of x plus 1. Now again, this is all we have is the vertical shift, but just for the heck of it, we're just going to go through everything. What does that mean? It's going to shift up 1. But let's go ahead and graph that one. Let's do all the points just for practice. You got to practice these points. Y equals cosine of x plus 1. Let's see. It goes y equals a cosine b of x plus c plus k, right? So the a, so if we put these here, y equals 1 cosine times 1x plus 0 plus 1. The only thing that's going to have effect will be that one right there. But anyway, the amplitude is 1, right? So that's not going to change anything, but we'll say that. Amplitude is 1. Amplitude is the absolute value of A. The phase shift, now there's no phase shift because there's nothing there, but, you know, phase shift is 0. I just left it as 0. Phase shift is 0. Because if you had 1x plus 0 is 0, phase shift. There is no phase shift here. There's nothing there, right? The period, again, period is like B is, there's nothing, it's just 1 for B. Remember, it's 2 pi over 1, just 2 pi. It's a regular period, right? Regular function goes around in 2 pi, right? And then the vertical shift, this is where we have a change, is positive 1. Now anything that's regular, the scale is going to be, the scale is 2 pi divided by 4, which is pi over 2. Now that's just the regular scale that we always do, pi over 2. So the scaling we're going to do, the first point, we'll go 0. Our 5 points are going to be, the first 5 points, 0, then pi over 2, then 2 pi over 2, then 3 pi over 2, then 4 pi over 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those are my 5 points. So it's really going to be 0, pi over 2. What's 2 pi over 2? Just pi. 3 pi over 2 stays the same. What's 4 pi over 2? 2 pi, right? There's our 5 points for scaling, right? So 0, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so let's go ahead and write our scaling. Okay. We have here 0, then our scaling, pi over 2, then 2 pi over 2, which is just pi, then 3 pi over 2, then 4 pi over 2, which is just 2 pi, then 5 pi over 2, then 6 pi over 2, which is 3 pi, then 7 pi over 2, then 8 pi over 2, which is 4 pi. Okay? Those are going to be our 5 points. We have our, okay, let's do our midline. The vertical shift tells us where the midline is going to be. It's going to be at positive 1. Okay? So let's go ahead and do here. Right here, midline is going to be at positive 1. That's where our 0 is normally, right? Our 0 is there. So we have here 1, 2, negative 1, negative 2. Make sure you get all your scaling in. Okay, so now it's cosine. Remember, cosine, we start high. Our first point, so here's our 5 points. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So our first point is high. Then our 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Fifth point is high. The middle point is going to be low. So now remember, we're on a scale of 1. So the amplitude is 1. So we go up 1, and then we're going to go down 1. Okay? And then everything in between the first and third point is going to be at 0, which 0 now is our midline. And then 0 here would be our midline. And so here we go. There we go. There's our first period. Now our second period, let's do our 5 points. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so remember, we start high. Here's our 0. we go up 1. Our last point's going to be high. Our middle point will be low, which will be, we have an amplitude of 1, so we go down 1. And our two middle points will be 0 also. 0, 0. And there is our second. By the way, make sure you put arrows here because they go on forever. I've got to put the arrows. I didn't put my arrows on my other one. I'm going to fix that. Look at, put a little arrow. Doot doot. Little arrow. Little arrow for this one. So cute. Little arrow for that one. Okay. All right. 2 more to go for our test. All right. Y equals sine x minus 2. What's that? There's the phase shift. Okay, I think the phase shift is the most challenging one in my opinion. But the last one's going to be the most challenging. Y equals sine of x minus pi over 2. Okay. So, y equals a sine bx plus c plus k. Okay, so go a little bit faster here. Amplitude's 1 because there's a 1 in front of the sine. So amplitude's 1, we'll leave it like this. There's the amplitude. Okay, phase shift will be bx plus c equals 0. Now, so it'll be bx, so we have here 1x minus pi over 2 equals 0. So what do? Let's solve for x. So that's going to be the shift is the left and right shift. This is going to be the starting point. Plus pi over 2 plus pi over 2. This is 1x equals pi over 2 or x equals pi over 2. Now that makes sense because remember this is like the h and that says we shift it, if it's negative we shift to the right, pi over 2. Okay, so there's a phase shift. I'll do that in green for you to see. There's an important one, phase shift pi over 2. Okay. Period. No period change, but remember period is 2 pi over b. There's nothing in front of the b. 2 pi over 1 is just 2 pi, which makes sense. There's no change. So that means it takes us, we'll finish the whole cycle at 2 pi. Okay? And then the vertical shift is 0. So we stay there at 0. That's our midline. We'll be at 0. We'll draw that just for the fun of it. And then finally, our x scale is the period divided by 4, which is pi over 2. That's simplified. So remember, our x scale tells us what to do, right? So we go 0, we go pi over 2, then we add that, then it's 2 pi over 2, then it's 3 pi. Remember, we need 5 points. 3 pi over 2, and then 4 pi over 2, and then 5 pi over 2. Now, our starting point is pi over 2, so we start here. We go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's our 5 points. Pi over 2. 2 pi over 2 is just pi. 3 pi over 2 is 3 pi over 2. 4 pi over 2 is 2 pi. And then we end at 5 pi over 2, right? Those are our scale points. Those are our 5 points from the scale. Okay, so let's go ahead and plot that. So we know our scale is pi over 2. So let's go pi over 2. Then we go 2 pi over 2, which is just pi. Then 3 pi over 2. Then 4 pi over 2, which is 2 pi. Then 5 pi over 2. Then 6 pi over 2, which is 3 pi. then 7 pi over 2, then 8 pi over 2, sorry, 8 pi over 2 is 4 pi, sorry, and then 9 pi over 2. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 9 pi over 2. Then 10 pi over 2, 5 pi, that's our 5th point. Okay. Now, let's talk about the... Is that thing going to focus or what? There we go. Okay. Now, let's talk about the vertical shift is 0. So we got here, I'll just draw it right here at 0. 0. And then, what do we have here? We have sine x minus pi over 2. So, okay, so our amplitude is 1, so we're going to go here at the high point from our 0 is going to be 1. Our low point is going to be negative 1. Our starting point, because of the phase shift, is going to be at pi over 2. So this will be our first point, and that's sine, right? So sine starts at 0. And then 5 points over. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Fifth point is also at 0 for sine. And then the midpoint is at 0 for sine, right? Now the one in between goes up. The one below, between the third and fifth, goes down. And there's our first period. Okay? So let's do our next 5 points. Okay? First point, 0. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Last point, 0. I guess that's our 5th point. The middle point is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The middle point will be here. That'll be at 0. And then remember, we go up 1, and we go down 1, and we go woo. Now, we want to get it to 0, so if we go up, then our next point is actually going to be down here. And then you can keep going. And there's our y equals sine x minus 2. Okay. One more, and this one is a doozy. Here we go. This is the last one where we have all of them, okay? Y equals 2 sine x plus 2 minus 1. Okay. Well, let's list all of our parameters. So let's do it all right here since I can fit it here. Okay. So what do we got here? We got the amplitude equals 2. Amplitude is 2, no problemo. Okay, now let's do the phase shift. Okay, the phase shift is x plus pi over 2 equals 0. So it's going to be x equals negative pi over 2. So that means we go to the left pi over 2. Okay. Now let's do our period. Period is 2 pi over b, which my b is 1. It's 2 pi over 1, which is 2 pi. That means I finish at 2 pi. Okay, and our vertical shift is equal to negative 1 because we got the negative 1 there, so that was pretty simple. All right, so let's graph everything that we got. Okay, first let's do, sorry about the x scale. I like the x scale because it gives our first 5 points. Remember, we're going to start at negative pi over 2. But the x scale will be our period divided by 4, which is pi over 2. Anything that's 2 pi, it's going to be pi over 2. So that means each one's going to be pi over 2. So our first point's going to be 0, then pi over 2, then 2 pi over 2, then 3 pi over 2, then 4 pi over 2, then 5 pi over 2, then 6 pi over 2, then blah, 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 right? So, but remember our starting point is negative pi over 2, so we got to go over here. Start at negative pi over 2, then add pi over 2. Anyway, 2 pi over 2 is going to be, so we start negative pi over 2, because our starting point is negative pi over 2. Then we add pi over 2 to that, we get 0. Then we get pi over 2. 2 pi over 2 is just pi. 3 pi over 2. 4 pi over 2 is 2 pi. 5 pi over 2. 6 pi over 2 is 3 pi. 7 pi over 2 is 7 pi over 2. Anyway, we got to do the first 5 points. So, because we're going in the negative, look right here. We're going to have to start here at negative pi over 2. Then 0. Then pi over 2. Then 2 pi over 2, which is just pi. Then 3 pi over 2. Then 4 pi over 2, which is 2 pi. Then 5 pi over 2. Then 6 pi over 2, which is 3 pi. Then 7 pi over 2. Then 8 pi over 2, which is 4 pi. Okay, let's figure out our midline. So our vertical shift is at negative 1. So we go here at negative 1. Oh, let's list our y scale. Here 1, 2, negative 1, negative 2. So at negative 1 will be our midline right there. So let's do our midline. That'll be our 0 now, right there. At negative 1 will be our 0. Our amplitude is 2. So that means from the midline, we're going to go up 2. So from here, there's our 0. We go up 1, 2. This right here, the 1 will be our high point. Go down 2, 1, 2. That'll be negative 3. Negative 3 will be our low point. Okay, that's our low point. Okay, now remember we're starting here. Here's our starting point at negative pi over 2. Okay, so that's our starting point. So here we go. Negative pi over 2, we have sine. Remember, sine starts off at 0. So the first point is at 0. The fifth point, the last point, go all the way around the circle, is at 0. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're at 0 here. The middle point is also at 0. Now remember, sine goes above, so there's my high point. I go below. Oh, sorry. Made a mistake. Our 0 is right here at the midline. I forgot. So we'll go right here. 0 here. Let's do it in orange. Sorry, sine. Our first point is at 0 right there. Our last point is at 0 right here. Then our midpoint is at 0. Okay. Now, we got to go up 2. So here, up 1, 2, there is our high point. Then in between these, we go down 1, 2, there's our low point. We got the oranges here. We go up, down, down, up. There's my first cycle of my sine. Now let's go this. Let's keep going. There's our next, let's start our next period. Start at 0. Fifth, 5 over. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right there. There's my other last point of my period. Then the middle will be right here. That'll also be at 0. Actually, here's my last point. Here's 5. There's my last point. So go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's my last point. And my middle point will be here at 5 pi over 2. Now, my second point is going to be my high point. So go up 1, 2. And then my other middle point will go down 1, 2, which will be right here. So I go like this. Up, down to my mid, down to my low, back up there. And there's my second one. Do my arrows. And that is y equals 2 sine of x plus pi over 2 minus 1. Sorry, that was a long test review, but I think it's going to help you a lot. So, go ahead and just start. Think. It's been a real great time studying with you. Hope this helps you out a lot.